So, what happened there?
What do you mean?
Well, why did you get all weird when I put my finger up your ass?
What the hell was that?
Mr. Griffin, that's a prostate exam.
Shut up! You had your finger in my ass!
That's how a prostate exam is performed.
Stick your finger in my
Pony ass.
That's good.
I am sure there are guys who have fingered you in the ass long enough that eventually you let them fuck it. And now you think you got me bent over with your finger in my ass, thinking I'm gonna let you do the same. I am not like you, Dana. You will not fuck me in the ass.
You know how when you doo-doo and stuff, and the doo-doo comes out, and kind of the doo-doo is like formed with other little doo-doos, other little pebbles of doo-doo and stuff, and they're all shapes. They're all shapes. Some of them, you know, shaped like little wedges, some little balls, some of them, you know, octagon-like, different shapes and sizes, making up this one big turd.
All right, welcome to Last Man on Earth. My name is Lex Jurgen. As always, I'm flanked by Matt Ralston. Matt, I have to start this week's show off, as you know very well, with an apology.
I'm sorry that I fucked up.
Through 160 shows, I finally fucked up badly with the audio recording device.
I'm sorry that I fucked up.
As Matt went to go take his dump at his appointed rounds, I decided to start fucking with the new audio software. And apparently when it said, are you sure, are you sure, are you sure you wish to delete what you've recorded so far? And I said, yes, 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 click, 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 red emergency light, click, 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 don't bother me. That meant something.
I'm sorry that I fucked up.
What was lost for the annals of history, unfortunately, were the first few segments of the show. I made fun of Matt for putting a X on his gender non-binary new driver's license for the state of California. Matt decided it was a socially progressive cause of his, and I decided that it was probably more related to latent homosexuality. We mocked beta males in Hollywood who ruined Father's Day. We also made fun of Connecticut State female track stars who last year used to be male Connecticut State track stars and were busting all the records. If you got a dick in your pants when you're running female track, you do a lot better. We made fun of Matt for going to the WNBA game. Mr. Ralston confirmed that female basketball players can't get off the ground, run slowly, and knock each other over like bowling pins. Although Matt did walk away with a nice chunk of cash from betting on the under. I'm not sure it can ever be replaced. However, Matt and I carried on, had a few more beers, and concluded with the rest of the show. Herein we go. Last Man on Earth, number 160.
Matt, we talked about an article with that showed off the fact there was a mother and daughter pilot team, and you were unclear whether or not it was staged or not. I couldn't really tell. Quite possibly it was staged. And it showed how like passengers were shocked but excited, you know, in a happy way to see that their airline crew was a mother and daughter pilot combination. And I think you and I both agreed simultaneously that would scare the shit out of us, and we would get off the plane immediately.
Yeah.
Is that about right?
Yeah. Why is that?
Why is that a thing?
No, I mean, why was it shocking?
Well,
I
they were
think
like
we compared it to like an Islamic pilot.
Well, I think that in the end, you and I agreed that like we don't trust women drivers.
Right.
So maybe having one would be okay in the cockpit, but having two, you'd have to have a male there if anything went wrong to take over from the female. Like teaching your daughter how to drive, you'd have to have some guy to say like, okay, look, things aren't going well. Let me just take the wheel. But I think we went through the list of who would be less scary for us to see in the pilot seat, and we talked about the Muslim.
Is part of it that we're concerned that maybe they got handed that job, like, you know, they should be piloting like a puddle jumper, but like because it's a huge corporation, you know, you're on American Airlines, like they were kind of like shoved in there, you know, like maybe if they weren't women, they wouldn't be having that kind of job.
I think that I'm guessing the standards. I don't know what the standards are for commercial pilot. I mean, to fly for like American or Delta or United. I assume they're pretty high.
I think you have to be in the top quarter of your class or something like that.
And a lot of them seem to come out of the Air Force or military, right? And they become commercial pilots afterwards. So they've gone through military training. I don't know if the female numbers are the same as the male numbers when it comes to former military pilots. But I still get nervous when the lady pilot voice comes on. and she says we'll be where we're going to be like in an hour. And then I kind of look and go, oh, there's a guy in there. There's a guy in there too. And then I'm like, oh, now it's a mom and daughter like flying the plane. I'm like, oh, what? Like, I don't know. Like, are they going to argue and then the plane starts going down? Are they something going to like can't decide on which way we should go, or they're lost? And then all of a sudden we start banking hard right, then banking hard left.
This does ring a little bit sexist, but it's also
a lot sexist. but this is a matter of life and death.
Yeah, I mean, look. You know, you can say things that everyone's thinking. If you see a pilot and he's wearing a turban,
yes,
you're gonna have thoughts about that.
Getting there. Well, didn't you walk off a plane with the guy next to you with the turban on? Was that you?
No, I wouldn't have done that.
Oh, really? Not the turban is. I don't think the Sharia they don't wear the turbans, right? Those killer Muslims don't wear the turbans, right? Those are like the Indian guys, right?
Different.
Those are the different like
the Sunni.
They wear turbans.
Yeah, the guys from Saudi Arabia.
They like headdress, some kind of headdress.
They wear turbans.
Yeah, I thought turbans was those like the wraparound thing, the wraparound towels.
I'm always confused about the Sunni and Shia thing, because I can never figure out which is the more progressive one, because they both seem really hardcore and insane.
But there's the Indian sect, the sect from India,
the
Sikhs, and they always get labeled as Muslims. Remember?
Yeah,
and everyone thinks they're terrorists, but they're actually not. But they wear the turbans on their heads.
Those guys are cool, but I can discern a Sikh. By the way, Muslims are cool too, but I can tell a Sikh from a Muslim. It's not difficult.
No, they're different. Usually different skin color for one. But if you saw a pilot and he was doing it like had the Quran and the blanket out ahead of time, you would be a little nervous.
I would.
Yeah, I would too. I remember the Egyptian airline guy who plowed the plane into the ground. There was that guy.
And they found the black box, and everyone was like, "Well, you know, maybe it was an issue with the with the rotor." No, he was just screaming "Death to America!"
Allahu Akbar, "Death to America!" and shit like that. I'm gonna kill everybody.
Yeah.
Although I think it was based off a personal like divorce or something he had going on, but still, it doesn't really matter. But yeah, the female thing is like kind of scary, and I think you and I agreed that we want a male, like an older guy with a mustache. And even though he has a child molester mustache and may indeed be like a Jerry Sandusky disciple who's raping boys in the shower in his off time, that's okay, right? Because
this is one of your best takes.
Yeah, thank you.
And it's really the only instance, and one of the only times I've ever said I would prefer a child molester for this job. Yes.
Like if you knew the pilot was a very stable, Big Brother volunteer, Big Brothers of America volunteer, or a library reader to kids in libraries, or Little League coach, but he also molested kids. I'd be like, yeah, but he's a good pilot.
Yeah.
And like, it's not like he's going to molest kids in the cockpit.
Yeah.
I wouldn't let my son go up into the cockpit to get the wings.
No. I mean, there's two kinds of child molesters. You know, there's the hillbilly, trailer dwelling,
right.
I molest kids in the trailer park.
Matter of convenience.
And then there's the meticulous
Yes.
child molester that has thousands of victims, a priest often.
Yeah.
Very organized.
Yeah.
Attention to detail.
Man in uniform. Yeah.
Successful.
Neat, clean.
Accomplishing his goal.
Yeah.
Hence the thousands of victims.
Yeah.
That's the guy I want in charge of all those buttons.
Yes, for sure. I mean, that's okay. I'd be like, if I knew that my pilot was that was a blue dot on the Megan's Law thing, I'd be more comfortable. So it doesn't bother me. But if I knew he belonged to the local mosque and there was something going on, I'd be nervous. I'd be really, or just if it was a mother daughter who were gabbing in the cockpit or arguing over like who could be invited to the wedding, I'd be very nervous about the whole thing.
So you'd be a little nervous if you found out your pilot was like on the PTA board.
Yes.
In her spare time.
Yes. And I'm okay. Like I said, I'm okay with the co-ed pilots. I need a guy in there to know that like when the shit hits the fan or the bird hits the engine and it goes out, and that we have Sully Sullenberger. I want Sully Sullenberger in there with the mustache, a little gray, a little tinge of gray, looking like the perfect dad, older dad or whatever. I want that guy in the cockpit taking over.
Yeah.
I don't. The mother-daughter thing. They look happy. They look great. It's a wonderful story. But let them do, like you said, a puddle jumper tourist thing, like off of Cozumel or something.
Yeah, I feel like child molesters too, because of their need for massive quantities of child pornography. Also, really good with like computers.
Oh yeah,
You know,
yeah.
very skilled with I don't know, managing data,
Running multiple hard drives, external hard drives.
yeah, multitasking. You
Yes.
know,
Yeah. I mean, the one thing you never know is they always appear to be perfectly groomed and perfectly coiffed, and they have like a cover story. They're like you said, they're very meticulous people, so they got shit down. And they're also, by the way, I assume they're always prepared for like the worst, like they have some sort of like preparations for like if things go south, because at any given time there might be like a raid of some kind.
Yeah.
So they probably have like they probably have the instinct of like a survive some kind of survival instinct. No, I think that's why I want the guy with the bushy mustache, the very nice overly pressed clothing. And if he starts giving wings to the kids, then we get nervous. But that's okay. They don't really do that anymore because they lock the cockpit's like a fortress now. They lock the damn thing. It's like a wall with 5 locks on it, made of metal.
yeah,
They don't come out. They don't come. I've never seen a pilot come out like in years.
Me either.
I don't think they're allowed to anymore. They have the piss balls or something in the cockpit and stuff. I think they lock it for the flight.
It's probably like just a drone at this point. They just pump in the guy's voice.
I will take a drone as long as it's not 2 women going, I'm Susie and I'm Maria. This is my daughter. And I'm cheered apparently and went crazy. Like, oh my God, another daughter pilot. I've been like, I'll take the next flight. Matt, there's a woman who claims Trump raped him. And let's both say that we don't like Trump. I think we both agree he's kind of a pig. He's probably very, we know he grabs pussy. He's probably very handsy with the ladies.
I think he's like the worst display of humanity we've ever seen.
He's a disgusting guy. But is he a rapist is the question. Because I know a lot of disgusting guys, and I don't think most of them are rapists. And I probably know a lot of guys who aren't disgusting, maybe who are rapists. I don't know. But Trump's been hit with like I feel like at this point, every woman who has a claim against Trump has come out against Trump. Like he just appeared on the scene and women go like, wait a minute, I remember he raped me. Like at least like through the 2016 presidential cycle, Gloria Allred was pulling out all these ladies who I remember them walking across the stage. I don't know what happened to them all. Either they were shot and buried or their cases fell apart, but they just disappeared. There were like 12 of them. And then, of course, the women he paid, the women, all the Playboy models he paid to have sex with, and then the various wives, and then the stories of him coming on to women and basically inviting every woman who gave him a hard-on back to his hotel to have sex, all sorts of stuff, but seemingly very consensual, all consensual situations, as gross as they may be, especially for his current wife who has to sleep with him or whatever she has to do. But this woman, E. Jean Carroll, by the way, I don't trust anybody with an initial for their first name. That just like seems like a very pretentious, obnoxious thing that maybe was done in the old days for some reason, but makes no sense whatsoever anymore. So I don't like people, men or women, with initials for the first, with a letter with an initial for the first name.
I don't really like the middle initial either, but the first name as the initial is very pretentious.
Yeah, just drop it. Drop it. You don't like your first name? Fine, just drop it. No one's going to know. We're not going through your genealogy chart. So she's a writer. In the 90s, she's kind of I don't know, she's a very New York-looking woman is the best way I can put it. I don't mean she's Jewish, because I don't think she's even Jewish. She's just a very New York-looking woman. She smacks of Manhattan all over her. She was a writer, apparently, in the 90s for Elle magazine. She was like a well-known female advice columnist in Elle magazine and other New York media outlets. So she wrote advice columns for women. And I guess she was fairly big, which is how she claims Trump knew her when he ran into her at the upscale department store in Manhattan in a year in the 90s. She can't exactly remember. It's either 95 or 96, she knows. Because when you get raped, you're just sometimes the years, you forget the years you were sexually assaulted. And then he was shot. He ran into her, this is according to her story. He recognized her right away, which I don't know how that's possible. But he recognized her right away, and he was there to shop.
It's possible. He was a media whore.
He was a media whore, I guess. That's true. But Trump, at this time in the 90s, he's a billionaire. He's running Atlantic City, the fights. He's in Bergdorf Goodman's. She says buying a sexy lingerie for a girlfriend, not his wife. I think he was married to Marla Maples at the time. And suddenly, according to her story, he asked her to help him shop. And they gallivant through the store. They make their way to the lingerie department where he picks out obviously something that would be utterly disgusting. She seems to agree to try it on for him. She's a 51-year-old woman at this point, by the way.
That's where the story is very weird.
Yes, like, oh, like, why don't you try it on? Show me how it is. So, like, in the very least, she seems to be flattering him and or interested in him in some way. And he seems to be, for some reason, although he's boning lots of young models with all his money, seems to be overly interested in the sort of a frumpy 51-year-old woman that he's going to have try on lingerie for some reason. Like, this strikes me as like a sort of like sort of dumpy school principal, like on a holiday, who might run into a lady he's going to have sex with. It doesn't sound like Trump at all.
He might have just got horny at that moment.
Yeah, it happens.
But I don't think he's the type of guy that will just fuck anything.
No.
He seems to have a type, and he seems to stick to that.
He likes the young bimbos, right? So, but she claims she was in the dressing room. He forces her way in and literally starts to physically assault her and hold her back, pull his pants down, and try to have sex with her in the dressing room, which again doesn't really sound Trumpy. I don't know. He just seems like he doesn't seem like, I don't know why. I mean, for all his grossness, that doesn't seem like Trump. To be like violent, to be like, you know, a violent guy. He seems like a guy who would say like, "Here's the cash, take it or leave it. I'm a busy man."
He is the grab him by the pussy guy, which
that's a boasty kind of thing.
Sexual assault. Yeah, I was gonna say I don't know. I think he was kind of speaking in hyperbole, but I mean, look, it's Trump. It wouldn't surprise me.
Sure.
So here's where I'm conflicted. She is a feminist writer who kind of benefits professionally from having this kind of material available to her, correct?
Absolutely. She has a book coming out about the case. I think it's called "The Case Why We Don't Need Men."
Okay, so right there, I'm like, okay, so you may have an agenda, but is she angry at men and she's writing a book bashing men because she was assaulted by Trump, or perhaps, you know, she had a pattern of abuse directed towards her, or is she opportunistic here and essentially embellishing or completely making up a story because she wants to sell copies?
Or both.
Or both.
I mean, so like those, you know, we talk about this with like all these activist bloggers who always seem to be asked to get off airplanes or denied rights, stuff like that. And they always somehow have turned out to be, their career is activist blogger.
Yeah.
And somehow they're always the victims of like some sort of racial or discrimination attack on airplanes.
And there's always, this has a tinge of Jussie Smollett.
Yes.
Like when I hear and you just told me, like, I haven't read her
like the
account,
details are too much.
I'm like, why would you be trying on lingerie
for
a guy
gross dude.
that not obviously that would invite him to sexually assault you, but
that you just met,
but you're not interested in him,
right?
It doesn't really,
and you're not like some ingenue. You're 51 years old. Like, it's not like you're a 17-year-old in the big city and you don't know what's going on. You're 51 and you're a media writer in Manhattan. I mean, you're a fairly sophisticated person. But here's the thing:
is she this? Yes. Well, we don't know who Trump's debutante was, but I would argue that I bet you they weren't the same size.
No, probably not.
So how is it going to serve anything to be trying?
And she did this article. Her book's coming out. She did this article about like a list. The article is called like "Lists of Men That Are Horrible" or some shit like that. It was done in a New Yorker magazine in advance of her book through her publicist. The whole thing seems bullshit. Obviously, Trump is a pig, so he could have done it. Who knows? But the bigger question really isn't this shit like completely out of bounds? I mean, you can't. There's no way he can defend himself. There's no witnesses, by the way. She said there are no witnesses to what happened. So you can't defend yourself. It never went to the police, obviously. It was never adjudicated in a court. There's not even two other reliable people to come out and say, yes, we were there and we saw it. He was a jerk and tried to, you know, it's like the Kavanaugh thing kind of. Like, isn't this completely out of bounds and unfair for someone to say 25 years ago, nobody saw it, but hey, this guy's a rapist? Even if it's Trump.
I don't know. I think we can just judge the person, like, kind of like how we're doing. What if it, you know, I don't know if it happened or not. It's a total coin flip.
Yep.
I'd always side with the woman, I suppose, unless she's writing books
unless she has a book coming out
called "Why Men Suck."
Yeah.
But if it really happened, you know, I would think it would be cathartic. You would want to expose the guy in whatever way you could.
But why not? So there's a tweet she put 2 years ago out where she said and it was a picture of Trump looking fat and stupid or whatever, and she said, when is someone going to come forward and stop this guy? Stop this guy, And this was 2 years ago. I'm like, what? So she's looking. She put a hit out on him, and then also, by the way, 2016, of course, would have been the time to introduce the idea that the guy who raped you is about to become president.
Yeah.
Not another 2 and 3 years later. That seems a little late, if not 25 years too late. That seems to be time. And there were dozens of other women who were coming forward with allegations.
Or would the time be when there's so much coverage about the next election coming up already, which is ridiculous, but there's sort of a slow news. I don't know. Would now be the time?
But if
you wanted,
I agree.
attention,
if you want attention, of course. Whether or not,
but if you were raped, you would want attention to be drawn to the fact that you are accusing someone of raping you.
Yeah, and also that you don't want this guy to be president necessarily, let alone be a TV star and all the other things that happened since the 90s when this occurred.
But it seems kind of calculated.
It seems very calculated. But even if it's calculated and it also happened, there's got to be there's a reason why we have statute of limitations criminally, because this is too long. You can't prosecute someone from crimes that happened that long ago because people don't remember, stories change, nobody really knows, people aren't around. That all applies to outside the court system as well, just the sort of polite society, which is you can't just call someone 25 years later a rapist, especially if you have no corroborated evidence. Let's say it's not Trump. Let's say it's you, Matt, and some chick says oh, in high school Matt raped me. No one was there, and there's no I have no way to corroborate this, but he's a rapist, and and I'm writing an article about it in the paper. There's literally no recourse for you. I mean, you could sue somebody, but there's literally no recourse for you to stop that allegation from happening now. And it tars you. I mean, no one gives a shit about Trump, but it tars you. I mean, there have been people that have been falsely accused, or these stories that come out all these years later. And, in a time when some of these stories are actually true, like Harvey Weinstein, it just seems like you should have to shut up after a certain number of years. You have a certain number of years, and then you have to legally, you just have to, there's an automatic NDA after 10 years, where you just can't bring up things that are over 10 years old in public without filing a police report.
I don't know if I agree with that. I mean, so what if, and I'm kind of spacing on how many women have accused Trump of raping him, but it's, I don't know what.
A lot.
Yeah. I don't know.
Not full rape usually, but some kind of some sexual assault or something.
Say she got the ball kind of rolling on this. Say she was one of the first ones. And then, now 30, 40 other women come out with similar stories, but they're not into politics. They're not activists. They're doctors and lawyers. And they say, yeah, actually the same thing happened to me 25 years ago. I think that would be worthwhile to hear.
Yeah, I think so too, but I think we went through that cycle already. That was the Gloria Allred cycle when she actively put out ads has Trump ever touched you unwantedly? Contact my law office. I mean, literally she was out there soliciting women who she believed existed without even knowing these women to come forward and share and let her represent them against Trump if they'd ever been sexually harassed or assaulted by him.
Well, this woman, she's a solo artist. She's not jumping up on stage.
Well, and by the way, and there was, so for the article that they did in New Yorker, the cover shot was wearing the same outfit she was wearing the day she says that Trump raped her when she was going into the dressing room. The whole thing is like you said, Smollett-esque.
It is.
There's so many weird details to this. And the worst part is she's just not very attractive, and I'm not buying it. He was paying $250,000 to Playboy Playmates to fucking suck him off. The idea that he was going after some frumpy chick in the dressing room at a public department store just seems so reckless, so incredibly reckless, that unless he was on meth or something at the time, it just doesn't seem
possible.
Trump is that guy like we saw in the 80s with the other lady who said that he propositioned her the minute her boyfriend left to go get hot cocoa at Central Park. He basically said, look, I'm rich. I own the plaza. Your boyfriend's a loser. Come back to the plaza with me and have an afternoon with the real guy. That's Trump, right?
Oh, yeah.
And then she goes, no, I don't think so. He's like, fuck it all. How about your friend over here? He's just not the guy who puts in the hard work. Matt, I want to ask you about O.J. Simpson. He's on Twitter, and I think it's the best thing ever. He did kill a couple people, beheaded them basically.
Yes.
But we got this email from Gabe. Isn't O.J. Simpson on Twitter a good thing overall to remind people what a murderous jackass he is versus people forgetting what a murderous jackass he is? Isn't it great that like ex-murderers will be on Twitter so we can remember how fucking horrible, how horrible they are?
I mean, he was found innocent. Like, are people trying to kick him off Twitter?
No, they're just saying how disgusting it is that it, like an ex-murderer is like on Twitter, like acting. They're like reading what he said. Like he said he has a lot of getting even to do, and they're like, oh no, OJ's gonna go kill people again, you know. But he's like doing this like humble OJ thing on Twitter, like cute mom stories and stuff like that. Like, and it was like, this is a murderer. This guy a murderer. Like,
it's an interesting kind of portrait of a psychopath.
That's what I think.
It's a nice look in through the looking glass or whatever that term is. Because I don't know what murderers kind of do on a day-to-day basis after they've murdered and got off and then went to jail again and for the first time. So I'm kind of fascinated by that. I think people are pissed, understandably, because he wants attention.
and he's got 800,000 followers now.
And he's known for being a murderer.
Yes.
And he's really rubbing it in the face. I feel bad for the families of the people that he killed. I mean, that's just got to, frankly, drive you insane that he's relishing the murder attention. I mean, this is what Charles Manson would do if he were out.
You would totally follow Charles Manson on Twitter, wouldn't you?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to say.
You'd be DMing.
I would. And you know, it's an open platform. You don't have to follow him.
Right.
People are curious about murder. Every fucking TV show, every other show is about murder. Like I listen to a podcast that's just about true stories of people murdering other people.
You love it.
It's
those
interesting.
Stories they're huge numbers.
And the only reason that people are interested in it, other than the small percentage of people who actually like are into murder in the literal sense, is you want to wonder what would possibly lead someone to do that. Like, I think that's the whole kernel of why people find this entertaining is you're curious as to what kind of makes a psychopath. And, you know, if you study this kind of thing, you're going to look at O.J. Simpson's Twitter feed as, you know, there's going to be like academic articles in like Psychiatry Today written about O.J. Simpson.
Inside the mind of a murderer. You get to see this stuff. I mean,
it's a resource, you know?
Remember when he wrote the book, If I Did It?
Yeah.
that was great. Like, I'm just going to write a book about like how it would have gone down had I done this murder. And like, just like without any sort of self-reflection about how that might look. Like, if I had killed these people, here's how it would have gone down.
He seems to have little self-awareness and is clearly a psychopath. Like, I'm sure he just calls networks and is like, I have an idea for a sitcom.
Yes.
And they're just like, oh, you're fucking crazy. You know, he's into it. He's embraced it. It's fun when it's a professional wrestler and it's fiction. It's more frightening, but is it more interesting when it's real life?
There was that one, God, who was the comedian? So he came out, he wrote this like cute story about his mom, and he wrote like, she was the last person to call me Orenthal. And then I forget who the comedians wrote back like, you mean that's still alive?
That's funny.
So people can have a lot of fun. They can have a lot of fun with it too. But I think it reminds people like, okay, this guy's famous. Why is he famous? Because he can't really. It's like he can't rehab himself. By trying to rehab himself, he's actually doing the opposite, which is just reminding people what a narcissistic, murderous, fucking drugged up, violent a-hole he was. It just kind of, I think it serves that purpose of reminding you about what a horrible guy he is. Whereas if he went out quietly and did charity work and some other shit like that, you might like, oh, maybe he wasn't such a bad guy. But now you're kind of reminded of what a hideous creature he is.
I don't know why people need the reminder. I mean, you look at Kobe Bryant, who's rehabbed himself into the Black Mr. Rogers for some creepy reason, and it worked. But it's like, okay, so he most likely raped a woman.
Sodomized, Matt.
Yeah. against her own wishes.
I like when they add sodomized to make it worse than rape.
But like chopping, like killing people with a knife and
point blank, like cutting their heads off. Like,
that's just like the most frightening, gruesome. I'm sorry, it's just worse than what Kobe did. It just is.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then you got Tiger Woods, who like he was just a perv.
What did he do?
He was just
He just cheated on his wife and had sex with a lot of
He was just into
prostitutes.
dirty, rough sex with hostesses.
Yeah.
And he never really tried to go back to the chipper, Mr. All-American boy type of dude. He almost, not that he has much of a personality, but he started wearing black. He grew a goatee. He was just like, fuck it, I'm just a dirty perv.
Like Hollywood Hulk. He was Hollywood Hulk Hogan.
Pretty much.
He just went dark tiger.
He just owned it. But OJ obviously doesn't have a choice. And I don't even know, to be honest, I've heard about it. I don't know what he's doing on Twitter. I know that the knife emoji thing was fake. I thought it was.
He's not that stupid, I don't think. But he will eventually do shit like that to get attention.
But what is his deal? Like, what's he doing?
He literally wrote, the first thing he wrote was like, I'm on Twitter now. I've been in whatever. I lost a lot of years. I got a lot of evening it up with people to do or some shit like that. Like, I think he did that intentionally so that he would be quoted and people would go like, oh, he just threatened to kill. Like, well, first of all, who's he evening it up with? Who's he going to kill? Like, who's he have a grudge against? Like, the people who accused him of murder when he murdered somebody? I mean, like, it's like he was wronged. He wasn't wronged in any way. I mean, I guess he made the people who put him in jail for the heist, the fake heist.
I think he did get a little bit.
But those were like his buddies who actually like testified for him during the trial. It was really the state of Nevada who wanted to get him off the streets.
Well, just if anyone.
Plus, he's 74 years old or something. I don't know what the fuck he's going to be doing to get revenge on people.
Well, are there Vegas odds on if he kills another person?
I think he hobbles pretty badly. His eyesight isn't so great. He's just like a stalk someone really slowly in dark alleyways.
Well, he is in like the most easy to get a weapon state of Florida, right?
I think he's in Florida now. He has something where he's like allowed to be in Nevada or Florida, which is weird. He's like on probation still in Nevada, but because his home is in Florida, he's allowed to be in either state, I think. Some weird ass.
And how does he have money? Enough money to live off?
Well, he kept his NFL pension.
Oh.
They couldn't attack the pension. Plus they believe that he was before the civil suit, he was hiding money away.
Yeah.
And then also in Florida, you can't lose your homes. You can have like multiple homes they can never touch.
Oh.
So he has millions of dollars worth of real estate, which I assume he's reverse mortgaging to get money for as well. And then he did some like anything he earns, is supposed to be tapped into the $35 million he owes. But somebody was mentioning how imperfect that is, and you're able to keep a lot of the money. Not like you can't keep millions of it, but like you can keep a good amount of it, like qualify under like protectable expenses and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. So if you sue someone for like some outrageous amount of money, and they're supposed to pay you that, they still get to keep a lot of their money from year to year. Like it's more of a garnishment system than it is like we take everything you get. So it sort of was never designed for this type of suit. But I think it's great that he's on Twitter. I would love Manson on Twitter. All mass murder, probably not rapists, maybe, but like all murderers, like not sex. I think the sex criminals necessarily, but like really fucked up serial killers is like there was an FBI show they did on Netflix last year with the first criminal profiles in the 70s with the first when they started interviewing the serial killers in prison, and the shit they learned, like they just assumed these guys were just violent fuckers, but that's when they started learning about the fucking latent homosexuality, the mother issues, all the narcissism, all this stuff about serial killers, what they really were. So they weren't just fucking dudes who were violent dudes, but they had this fucked up sexual psycho history. That's how they learned all that stuff, by just interviewing them in prison, buying them peanut butter sandwiches and letting them talk.
Yeah.
And that's how they started putting this profile together of, what would be future serial killers. And they all had this fucking like latent homosexuality, mothers who fucking berated them and like killing animals at early ages and all sorts of rage issues. So I think you learn shit. I think it's how you learn shit from OJ.
Yeah, I mean, you can read like some 18th century account of what Vlad the Impaler was doing.
Yes.
But like, imagine if you could just have his video diary.
Yes.
And be like, why are you trying to impale all of these people?
And then you see his mom put him in dresses like when he's 4 years old.
Yeah.
Or his stepdad sexually molesting him.
It's information that we can try and use to correct this behavior for future generations.
I always love that scene in the beginning of the original Halloween with John Carpenter when the boys and Michael's in the mask and he sees his sister having sex.
Yeah.
And then he kills them like with a knife. Like that to me was like that was the late 70s. That was like out of that whole serial killer thing, which is like when they started realizing these serial killers were like started as little kids, like they were fucked up as little kids.
Yeah,
that whole thing came out of that. So I'm down with OJ on Twitter.
The closest we got to this was have you ever seen? It was one of the first like prison documentaries, and they followed this guy. He was a serial killer. I can't remember his name, but he started growing tits.
Oh,
and at the time it was like very shocking because he was just casually talking about how he liked to kill people, kind of confessing,
right?
But then he just had tits, and at the time it was it was very creepy, notable because he was just walking around smoking cigarettes. Anyway. This is like better than that. This is better access.
Oh yes. This is like Buffalo Bob making the skin suit to become a lady.
Yeah.
All right, Matt, I want to end today on the two blockbusters you haven't seen, which are summer blockbusters: X-Men: Dark Phoenix and Men in Black 87 or whatever the fuck it is. By the way, the first Men in Black is one of my all-time favorite movies. Not because it was such an amazing movie, but because it was 89 minutes long. And it always reminds me that you can make a good movie in an hour and a half. This is like 20 years ago now or 24 years ago. But they actually used to make really good movies, summer movies, that were an hour and a half long. And now they're all fucking 3 hours long.
You're clearly bitter about having to take your kids to the movies.
Well, not only that, but how fucking sitting for 2 hours and 50 minutes in the Avengers. Like, why is the Avengers like a 3-hour experience? Like, it's not fucking Lawrence of Arabia. It's not an epic telling of a long historical tale. It's a comic book movie that they've turned into a 3-hour.
Didn't take it. Oh, I was going to say Men in Black didn't take itself seriously. Like there was no scene where Will Smith was reflecting about how was his childhood or anything. It was just like we're just going to have a bunch of goofy shit.
We're going to have a goofy, fun movie that can be done wrapped in an hour and a half because it doesn't need to be complicated.
There was no messaging about race.
No, there was nothing. It was cool. It was funny. There was splats. There was big guns and bugs, and then it's over. Yeah. And it was 90 minutes long, and I thought, God, that's fucking perfect because you can make it great, and it was hugely financially successful, and everyone liked it, got good reviews and stuff, and it's a good movie, an hour and a half long. And now the same movies are 2.5 hours. They add an extra hour, and the extra hour that's added in all these movies is not good. It never adds to the movie. There's never a movie you go like, that could have been longer. It really could have been longer. That's crazy. But so Men in Black 4, I guess, came out, and Dark Phoenix at the same time, X-Men, and they were both ballyhooed as like a female-led film. So Men in Black, they put the chick against Thor, what's his face. They're going to have a female Men in Black. It was a woman in black. This was a big to-do. And then Dark Phoenix, it's the chick from Game of Thrones, the redhead from Game of Thrones character was going to be the lead. And all the other female characters were going to deal with her in the movie. And Halle Berry, it was a real female-focused comic book movie, just like with Captain Marvel 4 and stuff like that. Both movies came out. Both, surprisingly, got horrible reviews from critics because even though they were female-led films, they felt open enough.
So they must have been really shitty.
Must have been really shitty, and nobody saw them, and they're both tanking horribly. These are two big summer blockbusters. And it got me to thinking that maybe just having a female lead or a gender-bending film like with Ghostbusters a couple years ago alone is not the essence of how to make a good movie. Maybe you need more than just saying we're going to have a female empowering, female-led movie. That maybe is just not enough to make a good movie.
Yeah, like you think audiences are starting to catch on.
Yes. and even critics now, I think, feel like maybe 2 years ago, Wonder Woman was actually a pretty good movie, but Captain Marvel was pretty shitty. But I think they're starting to catch on with like, I don't have to say I like the movie, especially if it's a franchise, huge, comic book movie, just because they put women in the front and center to mask it, how bad it is.
It appeared very ill-conceived to me because I saw the trailers 1,000 times during the playoffs, but
during the manly playoffs, yes.
So I'm like, okay, it's Chris Hem, and I really wasn't paying attention but I was forced to watch the commercials. So you're talking, but I'm looking at this trailer for the 80th time out of the corner of my eye, and finally I'm like, is that a boy or a girl? I don't know, and she is like 4 feet tall. It looks like she's like a Nickelodeon personality, but she's playing an agent with this. Masculine dude, and I forgot about it, but I was like, that looks really fucking stupid.
It does look
and,
stupid.
I feel like a lot of other people had that same reaction.
And also, not only did it look stupid, it turned out to be a stupid movie. It turned out to just be a really poor movie.
But were they even close to the same age? Like, that actress.
Well, the problem is, so she was in Thor, the Thor movie.
She does not look like a believable special agent.
No. I mean, you could have a smaller. I mean, first of all, Thor Hemsworth is big, right? He's unusually large for an actor in Hollywood because most big action stars are like 5'8".
Yeah.
So if you're 6 feet tall, you're going to dwarf everybody in the movies. So if you're Stallone or Tom Cruise sitting at 5'8", that's what they want as like their action stars.
Yeah.
But yeah, she's probably 5'2", and
directorially, there's ways to get around that.
Yes.
It just looked stupid, and not in a funny way.
But it's also like, isn't it like
whoever made this doesn't know what they're doing?
I feel like there's a green light decision that was made. Obviously, they have to make an X-Men. They have to make a new Men in Black, so they have to churn these fucking franchises to make money and to get another movie out. But I feel like the decision making is like, what's going to be different this time? How are we going to sell this one? Let's put a woman like in the front and center of this. Let's make this female led. And they all go like, all right, it's a go.
Yeah.
Like it's a go. Like
brilliant.
Yeah, without like look at the script or the story, or are we ready to go yet? Or like, is this like enough that we have a female lead? Obviously, women are talented actresses. It's not like there aren't female talented actresses, and the actresses in the movies are talented themselves, but they give them shitty movies and the only reason they seem to be going forward is because they were female. And I think if they had if Will Smith and what's his face were once again in this movie, Men in Black, they would have gone like, no, we need another 6 months on the script or another year on the script or whatever. We're pushing it back. We're not doing it.
Right.
It's not ready. This sucks. Or Tommy Lee Jones would be like, fuck no, this sucks. Like, I'm not doing this. But they just push ahead because there's like the female thing, and they already have the posters out. And it's the summer of female and the summer of women, and with Dark Phoenix, with X-Men, with the chick from Game of Thrones, and the other girls are like all the Hollywood front pages of all this stuff, like women dominating Marvel, the comic book movies, and all this stuff. It's a new era. I'm like, that's not enough. Like, that's not enough.
Yeah.
If you have a shitty movie, and I think the veil, like I said, it's off now. Like, I think even female critics or these fucking whining beta males are like, I'm just not going to shill anymore. I'm not going to shill anymore. This movie sucked. I'm just not going to say it's empowering, and that's enough.
Yeah.
This was no, if it's an independent film about a fucking Ruth Bader Ginsburg, they're still going to give it a great review no matter what. But if it's a fucking summer comic book movie, they're going to be like, no, I'm just not giving it the bump. I'm not giving it the bump anymore. I'm embarrassed for myself to say this was a good movie or worthwhile seeing.
Yeah, I think people are, I don't know. There's obviously it's skewed with, if you say the studios and the major critics are essentially in bed with each other, right?
Yes.
So like a major movie like that, it doesn't really matter. But because remember Ocean's 8?
Yep.
It got on Rotten Tomatoes. It got a worse rating than the other Ocean's movies in terms of critics, but the site said that the critics thought it was better. So I'm still confused as to how that works. But like that movie, is it called Wine Country? Is on Netflix now?
Yes.
And that has roughly a 70% approval from critics on Rotten Tomatoes, but the audience is at like 30. So it's like way. And it's
is that the Amy Poehler one?
Yeah, it has a lot of talented people in it, but it's a bad movie.
Right.
So I don't know. Like it's getting. I think we're saying the same thing, that it's getting to be pretty egregious, and even people that don't care about this shit are catching on.
Yeah, I don't understand. I think it's like now they're saying, okay, the next step is you have to make a good movie. Now you actually have to make a good movie.
Yeah.
And the best way to make a good movie with the female lead is not to take a men's movie or a men's franchise and just put women in charge of it and say, oh, we've done something clever.
Right.
Like that's like to take Ghostbusters and say, guess what? This time they're all women. Like, whoa.
I can just see the board meeting where they're patting themselves on the back as if they haven't done this fucking 12 times already in the last year. Like, this isn't all you do,
Right.
and they all think they're awesome and
Right.
creative, and like they're doing something good for women, and it's and then they go celebrate and drink on Sony's fucking expense account. It really bothers me.
It's not a talent too, and you would think that women's movies, if they were superhero movies or whatever story, would focus on the story as women, as opposed to just putting women in the role of what guys used to do. It's a whole thing of like, why not make a good movie for women about women? Obviously, it doesn't make as much money, but why does it have to be women in these roles that used to be for teenage male audiences that like just seeing dudes with guns?
Yeah.
Like it doesn't, like inherently it doesn't make any sense. The women already get paid a shitload of money anyhow. Why not do Hunger Games? Hunger Games is a good example with Jennifer Lawrence. It's a story about a strong woman, who stands up for the system, whatever. It's based around a female character. And it made billions of bazillions of dollars. Why not do that instead of just taking a franchise and gender bending it and saying, no, now look, this is all like empowering. We've done something great here. This is a comic book movie, but no, it's women. And by the way, they just fired. So Bryan Singer can't work right now for a little while in Hollywood. So they hired. So he was doing Red Sonja, which is a comic book, old comic book. It was what's her name was Red Sonja in the 80s with Schwarzenegger. Bridget Nielsen, I think, was Red Sonja in the 80s, and she's like the kick-ass swords wielding like hero, like Viking hero. But now they got rid of Bryan Singer, and they hired the woman who does what's the thing on Amazon? Transparency to direct it. I was like, oh no, like really? And she's like, we're really going to reshape. She goes, we're really going to reshape the way comic books think about female heroines or something like that. I'm like, oh, okay, I'm not going. Like that's all I thought. Like, oh, okay, like Red Sonja with like some sexy actress with like Bryan Singer who overcompensates by putting too much sexuality in there for guys. I'm going, but I'm thinking like the one from Transparency, like with the butch haircut, talking about she's going to really redefine how women appear in these comic book stories. I'm like, nah, not going. Just not going.
Yeah.
Why? You've just told me the movie's not for me any longer. Like a movie that's perfect for me, you've just told me now you're going to take it away from being perfect for me to being something I don't give a shit about.
Yeah, and they're obviously going to insert so much shit in there that doesn't belong in it.
Yep.
Like, those comic book movies and comic books, they always had some messaging. Pretty much any decent art has some message behind it. But it was not overt, and it was consistent. The tone of it was, kind of a through line. It wasn't like, let me look into the camera and talk about rape for 30 seconds. You know what I'm saying? Like it's not subtle anymore, and meaning that it's not as good.
It's obvious, and I think the critics I think even the critics understand that. Everyone over the age of 35, at least, that's just not good. If the movie's not good, it's not good, and it's not meant to be. The best movies, of course, carry a strong message without being obvious about the fact they're carrying a strong message.
Right.
That's what even great popcorn movies. Apparently, Toy Story 4 is really, really good about the message it carries in it without hammering people over the head about it.
Yeah.
It's about the existentialism and the whole value of life and whatever all this stuff is without actually like fucking stopping and they can be really heavy-handed about it, but through character development and through story, without speeches and direct addresses and obvious plot points that are put in there just to carry a message. Yeah. All right, Matt. So you wish to pimp and promote this month on the podcast?
I don't have anything going on right now.
Well, you've had your your identity's been stolen.
Yeah.
Now,
I got that working?
What if someone who is awesome steals your identity? Do you allow them to keep it and just be you for a little while? Like, what if a total player, like who's just an awesome person, steals your identity? Do you let them be you and just sort of like live up your name a little bit?
I don't know. Maybe we could swap for a while.
Like a Russian oligarch takes your name and like starts banging like Irina Shayk and stuff like that, and like Matt Ralston was checking into a hotel in Odessa with some modeling. Like, let him use your card for a little while, man. Why not?
I don't know.
Probably not the case. I'm just saying.
No.
Identity theft is on the rise. I know from every commercial I see on television.
Until it happens to you, you never.
Well, it happens according to these commercials to 10 million people a year or something like that. The one about when they start selling your home out, that's the one that scares me, because they steal your identity and they like mortgage your home, get a mortgage on your home without you knowing. And then all of a sudden, like the bank comes to your house one day and says, yeah, you owe like $500,000 you didn't pay. We're taking your house.
See that would ruin. Here's the situation I'm in. I'm kind of busy, and I have a lot of shit to do, and shit like this keeps happening, and it's really bringing me down because now I'm gonna have to deal with this, and you know.
And it's like it's not easy. Like these people who lose their houses, like they're on the defensive. They have to prove that they didn't take the loan out, and the bank. It's all computerized. So the bank's like Mr. Jones of the bank remembers it wasn't you. Right. It's all computerized. So like you literally have to hire an attorney and spend like 12 months and do through all this stuff to prove that you weren't the person who took the loan out. That someone did it fraudulently to get your house back. And meanwhile, they could be evicting you, and all sorts of shit is going on because all systematically processed now. And I just heard again, this might be people selling the product, but it seems like true horror stories where people have just fucking like run up this debt, taken your home, all your assets, and like just someone you don't know until someone the sheriff knocks on your door with the tape to kick you out of the house.
Yeah,
I hope that doesn't happen to you, Matt.
I hope not. That seems. I feel like you'd have some kind of clue at that point before they showed up. But
yeah,
maybe you're old. I don't know.
I don't know. My credit card shuts down my credit card if I spend more than about $11 on it. like at least 3 times a week, I'm at a store like pay with a credit card, and they tell me my card doesn't work because they've shut it down for some reason.
Yeah, they're like, we just wanted to. We saw that you bought gas in a different neighborhood.
Yes, I got that too.
I go, hey. Why don't you call me first? Because hypothetically, let's say I was in like a bad situation and I needed the fucking gas.
Yes.
And then it didn't work.
Yes.
And that was my only card.
I had that too. I got gas twice in the same day one time. So I put a couple gallons in. There's a place that was like way overpriced. I put like a couple gallons in. And then I went to like the better priced one later in the day. And they shut my card down. They said, because it's very unusual to have 2 gas charges.
I'm just picturing getting off on a shady highway stop.
Yes.
Trying to get gas, it doesn't work. 4 cars pull up. My phone's dead. Then I get killed.
Yes, we'll name a law after you. We'll name a new credit. I was in one time. I was in Mexico at a resort in Mexico, long before they started beheading people, and they they shut my card down, and I was paying for the hotel, and they shut my card down. And I talked to the MasterCard people. They're like, "Well, it's Mexico. This seemed very suspicious." I'm like, well, yeah, okay, I'll grant you that. Anything Mexico is suspicious, but I'm in Mexico on vacation, and they're like, well, we just routinely, anything international like that, especially Mexico, we just cancel because we assume there's a high risk of theft. I'm like, do I need to call you ahead of time to let you know I'm going to Mexico? And they go, that would be great. like I'll call MasterCard. Here's what I'm up to.
Maybe you can call them and answer a series of questions and let them know how fucking weird your lifestyle is. Because like for me, buying gas in a different neighborhood is like a 0 in terms of the weird shit I'm going to be doing, sometimes involving the card.
Yes. Like you might see lots of small charges at sex shops. Just to let you guys know.
Are you going to be going to a strip club anytime soon?
I'll be in Compton. I'm going to be pulling a lot of cash out of the ATM machine, just so you know, at 3 a.m. near the strip club in Compton along the Jet Strip or whatever it's called. Casinos. I'll be a lot of ATM.
Have you ever Postmated condoms? A lot of that shit.
They literally told me that if you could tell a security department things like that ahead of time, it will save your card from being blocking the charges. I'm like, fuck you. Just talk to Facebook. They know everything. All right, this is Lex. Last Man Earth. Talk to you next week.
I seen this car a-driving down the wrong side of the street. And just as I suspected, there up in the driver's seat sat a woman with her little finger on the steering wheel. Get out the way of that automobile. Women drivers, won't they just kill you? Women drivers, won't they just thrill you? When they get behind the wheel of that automobile. Women drivers, won't they just kill you?